This is Scott Krinsky, and you are listening to Chuck vs. the Podcast.
Hi, my name is Graham Jones, but you can call me Gray. This is my show. It's about Chuck. It's filled with interviews, the latest news, crazy co-hosts, and spoilers that'll make your day. Oh, wait, I need to go back. I host these TV nights. They used to be pretty boring, but everything changed when I found NBC's new show, Chuck. Pretty soon, my TV night got pretty crowded. Guys I didn't even know were showing up the door. Big, important guys. Really scary, nasty, get killed for hosting them guys. Next thing I know, these super episodes are downloaded into my brain, which means every moment of my life, I'm thinking about Chuck. ChuckTV.net sent their top people to protect me. That's Mel and Liz. They're pretty zany. They co-host with me now as a cover. So now I must welcome you to Chuck vs. the Podcast, the #1 TV podcast for NBC's Chuck. This is Gray.
This is Mel.
And this is Liz.
And you're listening to episode 25 of Chuck vs. the Podcast, our post-Comic-Con episode, which was attended by Mel and Liz. Oh my goodness, I am jealous. How was it?
Fantastic. Fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah, it was crazy, busy, fun, a great atmosphere, painful, stressful, but mostly overall it was fun.
And 160,000 people?
Mm-hmm.
That's how many people Comic-Con estimated attended was 160,000. And I think we bumped into pretty much all of them. You're trying to get around and you get up close and personal with folks. There's no such thing as personal space at Comic-Con.
Wow.
No, you pretty much swap a lot of sweat. It's pretty gross.
But it's fun because, everybody's there in celebration of something.
Yeah.
Everybody's there because they love a show or a comic book or a movie. So everybody, you'd think that with that many people and jockeying for position that it could get violent or nasty, but it doesn't. People are they're excited to be there, and they may be disappointed that you got the front row seat and they're in the 4th row or, the 10th row, but they'll still say, way to go, good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations on an awesome seat. So it's just that kind of atmosphere.
And we'll get to Chuck, but you guys attended a few of the different panels.
We attended several, and we were also in several press rooms. And Liz has decided that next year she's only doing press rooms because she's a little princess. Not that I disagree, but there's something to be said for being able to go in the press room and talk to everybody versus standing in line for 3 hours on 3 hours sleep.
I think it was the day that we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or something in order to get to stand in line for a panel. And I didn't have to be there because I wasn't going to go into that panel because I had press room just at the same time. Mm-hmm. So press room, you just walk in because it's by invitation only. Your name is on a list.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have to be there, but all my roomies were going to be going to panels, and they had to line up before the doors opened. So they dragged me with them.
Wow.
I told you could stay and sleep, but you said
and they wouldn't even give me coffee.
Hey, that was not our fault. You could have gone, but you realized she was like number 6 in her line.
Wow.
So she refused to leave. Don't give me any of that.
Very, very cool. And in particular, the TV Guide panel, you guys said on ChuckTV.net that Zach really owned that.
Oh, yeah.
He did.
Chuck did. Mm-hmm. Jack was representing, or Zach, did I say Jack?
You just said Jack.
Jack
That's her
Levi.
husband's name.
My husband just left for, anyway, he was definitely the energy representing Chuck, but pretty much overtook the whole panel.
Wow.
He did. It was if you've never seen Zach in person, it's hard to explain it because it's not like he's there seeking the attention. He's not egotistical or arrogant or saying, everybody look at me. But he's one of those people that everybody wants him to notice them.
Yeah.
That makes, he walks into a room and immediately everybody wants him to think that they're cool and they're worth, hanging out with, and wants him to give them their attention. And then he's just so energetic and funny and the life of the party without really trying. He's one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a guy that you just want to hang out with. And in this panel on Friday night, how many people were there, Liz, on that panel?
Oh, I think
12?
there had to have been, There had to have been 8, maybe 9, 8. I would say.
There were several shows there because it was the Sci-Fi Hot List.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there was people there from Vampire Diaries, V, Eastwick, Chuck, Flash Forward, and some of
the Medium.
And the Medium, right? That's right.
Alison Dubois.
Yeah, the person that the Medium is based on was there. So I think there were about 10 or 12 people on that panel.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first got there, we were in the first row, and Zach was sitting, and we were like first row, stage left, and they had his little nameplate out there, and he was going to be sitting at the end on the left, stage left on the end, so right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, yeah! And then they came out and started switching name tags around and moved him to the center.
Wow.
And that's the place to sit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the seat of honor, and they moved him there. We were mad, but they wouldn't listen to us and move him back. But, they all came out, and he owned it without even trying. He owned it.
Yeah.
The showrunners from the other shows that were represented there all made comments about wanting to have Chuck on their show.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny.
Chuck.
Just because you're an actor or just because you're in the industry doesn't mean that you're good in a group of people. I won't say names, but even in the Chuck panel, you can tell some people were really able to interact with the crowd more than others, and it just happens. It's a totally separate skill.
It is, and Zach's one of those people that effortlessly can interact with everybody. He's so friendly, and positive and upbeat. It's really, if you haven't experienced it in person, it is difficult to explain, but he's the perfect lead for a show. Perfect. Yeah. He loves his show. He loves the fans. He loves talking about the show. He loves talking to the fans. He loves talking to the media. But it's never, like I said, it's never with that kind of arrogant or egotistical attitude that we unfortunately did encounter a couple of times with people from other shows.
Mm-hmm.
Just really drew a line when we were talking about that a little bit during the week. We were just kind of comparing some experiences that we had with other actors and talent, and saying, there are some people that you just would want to talk to, and they would be happy to talk with you. And Zach's one of those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can totally tell. I mean, even in our rally interview, I know I mentioned this before, but it was literally 1 a.m, and he had just crossed the Atlantic to do a conference in the UK, and like 1 or 1:30 in the morning, he's taking an interview from me, like, and totally energetic, and it was supposed to be 5 or 10 minutes, and he goes 25, like, and that was all his doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, totally is. Well, let's roll into the Chuck panel itself, and I do want to give a spoiler warning. It's possible that we may mention things that are spoilers as we talk about the panel. But so what was it like? So you lined up for hours or not?
Yes, 3 hours. Got there at the crack of dawn. Fortunately, someone was already there and had saved a place for us kind of further up in the line. So we were able to get 5th row seats,
mm-hmm.
which when you're recording or you're taking pictures, that's really better than front row,
mm-hmm.
because of the way the stage, the elevation of the stage. If you're too close, most of your pictures or video are table
mm-hmm.
with like tops of heads. So, 5th row was pretty good.
Yeah.
We were pretty happy about that. But they started out with a highlight reel from season 2.
Oh, yeah?
And ended up with, the final highlight, or the final part of the reel was Chuck saying, "Guys, I know Kung Fu."
Mm.
And everybody cheered, and, there was a lot of cheering going on through the whole highlight reel. And then once the fans realized that what scene we were about to see, what we were going to end on, we were, there's lots of screaming and some following along of dialogue.
Yeah.
And especially Casey's "Chuck Me." So then it fades to black, and we're expecting that's the end of it, and they're going to come out on stage. But instead, it comes up, it says, 1 month later, I believe it says, and it opens with a close-up of a Subway wrapper on a desk, which had everybody laughing.
Yeah.
And it pulls back, and we're in Schwartz's office, Josh Schwartz's office.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Fedak and Zachary Levi are there as well. And they're asking Zach, what are you going to do now? The show's probably canceled. What are you going to do next? And he's saying, no, it's going to come back. I'm confident. The fans are behind it. I know we're going to get a third season. We're staying positive. And they're like, well, yeah, but what are you going to do? What are your plans if it doesn't come back? And he refuses to even consider it. He's just positive the show's coming back. So then the phone rings and Schwartz says, oh, I bet that's NBC. So he, picks up the phone and Fedak and Zach are kind of looking at each other like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And Schwartz is, okay, all right, well, thanks for calling. If you change your mind, let us know. He hangs up. And, and now Zach's face is kind of fallen and he's, expecting bad news. And Schwartz comes, says, we've been renewed for a third season. So Zach's now bouncing all around and he's all excited. He's like, yeah, you guys, this is awesome. And Schwartz and Fedak are like, yeah, this is great. I'm so excited. Yay, we get a third season. Kind of faking the excitement, they're not really excited about this. And, and the fans are like, what's going on? So then Zach leaves and Fedak turns to Schwartz and says, now what are we going to do? He knows Kung Fu. Now what? You said we weren't getting a third season. You said we didn't have to come up with a story beyond this. And he's all freaking out. And Schwartz is like, no, it's going to be fine. We'll come up with something. We're good with ideas. We can come up with some ideas. And then they turn back to Fedak and he's picked up the Stormtrooper helmet that's on a shelf in Schwartz's office and put it on and he's banging his head in his hands, which of course is, which got a lot of laughs because we are all geeks in the room. So then Schwartz says, you know who we need. And Fedak's says something like, oh, do you think that will work? And he says, yeah, it's time to call him in. And the camera pans to the side and there's Jeff and Lester sitting on the couch. And Schwartz says, we got to bring in Jeffster. So then, massive applause. And so then fade to black, lights come up and here comes Jeffster out on stage.
Oh yeah.
To perform. And this is how they opened the panel. They opened it but with a cover of Queen's Fat Bottom Girls.
Wow. And
it was a rock star performance. Best panel opening ever. I mean, I talked to people who have been there for the last 15 years and they were saying that I've never seen anything like that. That was the best opening for a panel in history of Comic-Con.
Wow.
So yeah, they rocked the house. And you can see, I recorded that and posted it on YouTube and it's on chucktv.net, but it was the energy that brought right from the beginning. It was fantastic. It was the perfect way to open the panel. And from there, the next hour, it was a party.
Wow.
It was a party with the Chuck cast and all of their closest friends,
Yeah.
It's very difficult to describe the difference between a panel with Chuck and most other panels, but they really embrace the fans and turn it into a party.
Wow. Well,
Simple,
I watched the panel over myself, and it looked like it was just a riot. But there were a few things that popped out. Maybe first of all, you could tell me which were the highlights of the panel for you.
Well, I think besides Jeffster, the highlight was Schwartz giving us credit for bringing Chuck back.
Yeah. That
was unexpected and really awesome. And I'm not sure if you can tell it on the video, but they saw when everybody's pointing and yelling. Mm-hmm. They were pointing at me, and then Schwartz or Josh Gomez and Zach do the rock signs with their hands, and that was directed over at me.
Oh yeah,
on behalf of ChuckTV.net.
Well,
and the fans that rallied.
I heard Josh mention ChuckTV.net. I don't remember that particular part. I know there were a few parts that were edited out. That could have been one of them. But
well, I've got it on my recording as proof.
Well, that rocks.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
To get, and of course they shouted out to Kath at Give Me My Remote, Mo Ryan from Chicago Tribune, Alan Sepinwall, who was the moderator of the panel, which was also really neat. So it wasn't just ChuckTV.net, but it was a little bit surreal and very, very cool to have that happen. But,
very, very cool.
Yeah.
And Josh Gomez wears pink underwear.
Yes. So I'm glad that's out in public now.
Yep.
Did we already mention that there's a spoiler warning just in case?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I thought out of all the people that spoke, the most tantalizing tidbits were from Josh Schwartz, and in particular something that he said that I've heard a lot, just little snippets here and there, is everybody is repeating the fact that Chuck could be back sooner than we think.
That's right. NBC's taken a real gamble with putting Leno on 5 nights a week. And if that doesn't pan out, if that does not work, then there's, suddenly 5 hours of programming they have to fill. On top of that, they've had a little bit of bad luck, I guess, with a couple of their new shows. One of them that was supposed to premiere this fall, their lead actress has cancer and has to undergo treatment.
Wow.
So they've had to push that back to mid-season and flip one that was mid-season and bring it to the fall, speed up production on that. So that's there. And of course, not every show is going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a chance, whether or not it happens, I don't know, but they are filming. They begin filming, the week of, August 6th, I believe is their first day back on set filming. And just to make sure that it's a little bit later than usual. If they were starting in the fall, they would have started filming earlier in July. But I believe that the reason they're kind of sticking to a schedule as though they were coming back in the fall is just in case they need to.
And just to remind everybody about what happened with season 2 was that they initially only had an order for 13 episodes, and when NBC saw how good the stuff was that was coming in, they just immediately extended it right to the full season. So I could see that happening as they're shooting and NBC sees, wow, this is so good, that could easily affect their decision on how soon they bring it back.
Agreed. And there's also the possibility that even if it doesn't premiere until March as originally intended, they'll go ahead and pick up that back 9 and extend it through the summer.
Yeah. You know what, summers are so dry for TV. There's so little to watch in the summer, and I think it'd be very wise of them to do that.
It would be a major boost, I think, for Chuck to have a chance to kind of find its footing when there's not a whole lot of other noise out there trying to get everybody's attention.
Yeah. I mean, it worked for 24.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could work for Chuck.
I think so.
Yep. So, and some other highlights are that I was really, really encouraged with the direction that the Captain Awesome character is going to take.
I know. Oh, I'm excited, and so is Ryan McPartlin.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him, is Captain Awesome going to be more involved in the spy world? And he said, yeah, he will be. He'll be submerged in the spy world, is what I believe the exact quote. And then he says, much to Gomez's chagrin, because I guess Joshua Gomez was wanting to be, the sidekick.
Yeah.
And, story-wise, Morgan, not probably the best person to have the secret.
Yeah.
Because as Gomez said in our interview with him in the press room, he'd be on Facebook immediately. Oh my gosh, you guys. Yeah. My best friend's a super spy. So he's not going to keep that secret.
Well, and I think Ryan made some great points about how the most exciting part of a superhero story is the beginning when he's trying to figure everything out. And we had that with Chuck in the first season, and now to be able to have a character that's going through the initial part of it, I think that's going to add a lot of fun to the spy world again.
And it'll be someone who's so very competent in pretty much everything that we've seen him attempt so far.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Chuck, who was a little bit bumbling. It's still a little bit bumbling. with all of this. So you're going to have that kind of contrast of the two of them trying to figure it out, and how is Awesome going to handle it?
Yeah.
Is he going to be awesome at this as well, or has he met his own kryptonite?
Mm-hmm. And definitely there will be some interesting stuff with Ellie.
Yeah, they apparently do not plan to let Ellie find out anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore Awesome's going to have to keep it from her. And it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that. Another thing that's come out is that Ellie and Awesome will be moving to their own place now that they're married. Yes.
Interesting.
And Morgan will be moving in with Chuck.
No.
Yes. Which is fantastic because that means that we get the bromance again. There's a legitimate reason for Chuck and Morgan to hang out a lot now that I don't think Chuck's going to be back at the Buy More. They didn't, nobody thought to ask that, I guess, but I don't think that Chuck will be back anymore. So this will be a way to keep Morgan around quite a bit.
Interesting.
I'm really looking forward to that.
I think that's going to create awesome possibilities.
Mm-hmm. But then, of course, since Awesome knows Chuck's secret, there will be a reason for them to continue to interact as well. And for Awesome to continue Morgan's instruction in how to be a man.
Yeah, which is very cute.
Yes, it is.
And we already knew that Karina will be back.
Yes,
and there will be another attempt on Morgan's part to to take advantage of that.
Yes, they did hook up once before, and so he's going to give it another shot. Whatever, Morgan. Keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, but definitely the most teasy. Can you say teasy thing? Out of the whole thing was when Josh Schwartz spoke about that. What is it? Emotional and traumatic event between Chuck and Sarah. Yes,
but good. He follows the fans start groaning, and he says, "No, but good, but it's good." Mm-hmm. So, of course, I knew immediately what my first question would be in the press room because the press room was after the panel, and so I asked Schwartz about that. So, he cared to expand. And it was pretty clear that he was, I think what happens when the showrunners in particular, or the writers, the ones that are actually creating the show, when they talk to the fans or the media about the show and they throw out these things like emotional and traumatic event, they know what it means.
Yep.
They know what they're talking about. And that maybe is how they refer to it in the writer's room. Mm-hmm. But because they know the end game, they know exactly what it means. They don't realize that when we, knowing nothing about what's coming up for season 3, hear emotional and traumatic event, we all, as witnessed by 4,000 voices in the room, groan and, and start to get unhappy. I mean, the internet immediately went nuts because, we were tweeting during the panel and along with several other people. And so it immediately went out there, and the fans of that relationship started getting pretty unhappy. Mm-hmm. So I followed up with Schwartz in the press room, and he said, I obviously picked the wrong words. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got to be careful what I say, how I phrase this. So I think this is pure speculation on my part. But I think what he's referring to is that Chuck's decision to be a spy is emotional and traumatic for the relationship because Sarah was ready to give it up and go after the normal life. She was ready to pursue a normal life and give up the spy world. And Chuck has just flipped and decided that he does want to be a spy. Mm-hmm. And he no longer yearns for what he was thinking of as a normal life. And I think them having to figure out how to handle that is the emotional and traumatic event.
Well, and he did say though, when you did ask that question, he was very careful to spell out the fact that season 3 is directly picking up where season 2 left off. There's no time elapsed between season 2 and season 3.
Not in the first scene.
Yeah, in terms of the first scene. And So, and then he also mentioned that it related to something that happened and didn't happen.
Right.
And so,
and that's where my speculation comes from.
yeah. Well, I'm wondering if a particular scene might have been the previous episode where they were in the motel together and something happened but didn't happen.
Yes.
And if that might have been the turning point sort of for Sarah, but also the complication thing for Chuck if he's fully investing in the spy world again. So
Could be.
Could be. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we also had a lot of discussion about beards.
Well, you
What,
can't.
they were calling it a beard off, weren't they?
Yeah, in the press room. When you're confronted with it, I mean, it's like the elephant in the room, the big hairy elephant in the room.
And it was a huge elephant. I'm thinking about Josh Gomez's beard. Like, I didn't know a beard could grow that big.
Well, as Zach said, Gomez had him on girth, but when it came to cleanliness, Zach would win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they were having a lot of fun with that.
Is there anything else that that came out that you wanted to mention? Well, in particular, we were talking about Yvonne Strahovski and how she wasn't as well represented in the panel itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she didn't get a question until the very end. And, I think she's fine with that. She seems to be happy to let Zach and Josh and in this case, Ryan McPartland and Adam Baldwin were also fielding a lot of questions and joking around. And they, she seemed to be just fine with letting them do that.
Yeah.
Let them answer the questions. So it was, I wish that more had been directed at her and at Sarah Lancaster, but we'll work on doing one-on-one interviews with them later on and ask them our questions.
Yep, which leads into some really, really exciting news that the next few weeks are going to be filled with some great interviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're looking forward to getting to talk to everybody as they get back to work.
Yep, that's so. Stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming from the podcast, including some interviews with. I think we can say that. For sure, Ryan McPartland and Vic Sahai and likely Sarah Lancaster and Scott Rosenbaum, the writer, executive producer as well.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yep. So
some more insight from the writers.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. And the other newsy thing coming up from Comic-Con is chuckmeout.com.
That's right. NBC has created a website that is directly in response to the fan campaign to renew the show. They wanted to find a way to really interact with the fans, and the way I understand it, they realized that the Chuck portion of the NBC.com website just wasn't set up to really interact with the fans. It's an information site, but it doesn't allow for a lot of interaction. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to be able to bring like exclusive videos from the cast and the creative team, which they've got several posted already, talking directly to the fans, a minute and a half, unless you're Josh Gomez, and then it's like 4 because he's got things to say. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they just really wanted a way to be able to reach out to the fans and bring us some content directly from the show, which I think is amazing. I'm glad that they've just realized that the fans online, obviously we have a voice, and that's a great way to reach us. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else they have coming out on that. They've got several videos up already, and I've been told that they will just continue to add things during production and then as the premiere gets closer. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Definitely bookmark that site because it looks like as they begin to shoot, there'll be lots of opportunities for some cool stuff on that site as well.
Yeah.
And so the panel wasn't the end of Comic-Con. Liz, you've got some other stories to share.
Yeah, we headed down with, hundreds of thousands of other people, because the panel, the cast was going to be down at the Warner Brothers booth, signing posters and whatnot, for a little while. But by the time we got down there, it was crazy because there was so many people. I think all 160,000 people were there at that same time. And you couldn't find a line to get in. We ended up in line for something that nobody knew. Nobody could tell us what we were in line for. So we just kind of stood there. But we were in a great spot because they had, the big screens hanging, overhead. And Zach and Josh actually got up and gave us some rock and roll. They gave us some You Give Love a Bad Name.
Mm-hmm. Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi, they belted out Bon Jovi to the absolute pleasure and insanity of the crowd. And it was crazy. And we went nuts and everybody's rocking and rolling right there in the aisles. No one could move. It was literally a gridlock around the Warner Brothers booth. But it was so much fun and they totally got into it. Zach playing the drums, Josh belting out the tune. And it was just fun. It was typical Zach and Josh moment.
So Jester's got competition.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what I was thinking when you guys were all talking about Jeffster. I'm thinking, yeah, but however, Zach and Josh can belt out Bon Jovi. So
very cool.
We'll see.
And so, was that the end of everything?
Well, actually, while we were standing in line, we decided that we wanted to try to get in. There was another signing with the cast of True Blood that was going to happen a couple of hours after the Chuck one. So I thought, well, we're in line. Let's just stay and see if we can get in. We didn't. But while we were standing in line, who should appear heading on up to the Warner Brothers Lounge to interview Schwartz and Fedak and Zach? Mo Ryan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from the Chicago Tribune. So they were, they had somebody else, another cast was up there being interviewed. So she hung out with us for a few minutes and we gave her some more ideas, some more questions to ask and, talked a little bit about the whole phenomenon of Chuck and Comic-Con in general. And that was just so cool to get to actually see her and, meet her and have a conversation. That was pretty awesome.
Because I think this was her first Comic-Con. It was her first time being in there, and she just didn't know what to expect. I think she was kind of blown away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun to run into people who were, Comic-Con virgins.
Mm-hmm. Because this is our second time, so we're totally, we've got all kinds of experience now.
Yeah.
We can help them out.
Yeah.
But we also, we had a meetup on Friday night with some other Chuck fans.
Right.
Yeah.
We met up with some Chuck fans and we ended up having folks come over to our hotel. We had a suite at a hotel. It was a little bit away from the conference center. So, location wasn't terribly convenient, but it made up for it in size. Our suite was bigger than my house.
Wow.
Now, granted, I live in a really small house, but we walked in and went, "What? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Wow.
It was definitely set up for a conference and for a party. The patio was huge with about four tables and chairs out there.
Wow.
Just for hanging out. Yeah. It was, that was bigger than my deck and, totally set up for entertainment and we took advantage of it.
We did. We also forgot to take pictures.
Oh, no.
So, we had
take your word for it.
Yeah, we had a pretty nice crowd there. We had Chris and Justin and Wendy. Yep. And we had several people there. Genevieve was there. We had a good time. We spent a couple hours. We ate some pizza. We talked about Chuck. We looked at checkmeout.com because it had just gone live. So we watched some of the videos from there. And I think everybody had been at the TV Guide panel with Zach earlier that evening. So we talked about that some. And
well, somebody must have taken pictures.
We realized it after most people had left that we hadn't taken any.
I took a couple.
So
I took a couple, but yeah.
For the most part, we were busy visiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until like the very end after hotel people had come up and said they had complaints about noise. I don't know why. We weren't being that noisy. We were laughing a lot, but yeah.
Cool. Well, before we leave the topic of Comic-Con, if people want to go next year, what date should they mark in their calendars?
Well, first they should mark, I think it's the second week of February, to check the Comic-Con website and see if tickets are on sale. Because those things sell out fast. So you want to get your 4-day pass, or at the very least a Saturday pass, because most likely Chuck will be on Saturday as soon as it goes on sale. And if you can't go, if it turns out that you're not able to go, there is up to a point that you can turn your ticket back into Comic-Con and get a refund. And I believe that they are also transferable. So you could find someone else who wants to go and, give them your ticket. But they're not expensive. I mean, I think a 4-day pass is $100 next year.
Oh, that's cheap.
Which, that's super cheap for a convention.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is to mark your calendar for February to get your ticket. And then I believe, Liz, what did they say? Was it July 22nd? Is when it's
Yeah. Usually July 22nd, and then it's 4 days, with the 22nd being mostly that's preview night.
Oh, yeah. So it's 5 days, actually.
Yeah.
So so it'd be the 22nd through the 27th, I believe, is when Comic-Con will run next year.
Very, very cool. We actually will have some spoilers at the end of the show because production is starting, and so we are starting to get some new spoilers. We haven't had them for a while. But before we wrap up, we did want to mention one thing is definitely we want to thank everybody for sending in donations and buying items through Chuckazon, which is our little Amazon store, and also the merchandise for ChuckTV.net and also for Chuck vs. Podcast. It really, really does help. And especially the Season 2 DVDs and Blu-rays.
Oh, you know what? That was another thing that came out. It's not going to be released until February.
No!
Yes.
Oh, my
I think they were
goodness.
saying February 10th.
No!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There were a lot of unhappy people when they said that. So originally, I believe they thought that it was coming out in August. Ali Adler had said that it was going to be coming out in August, but
yeah, Chris Fedak said that too.
Yeah, they apparently decided to move it so that it's closer to the premiere of season 3. Now, if season 3 ends up getting backed up and premiering earlier, I don't know what that's going to mean for the DVD release. But they did say that they are using this extra time to film some more extras, including they're doing Awesome's tips on how to be awesome. That'll be an extra that's included on the DVD. And what was the other one, Liz? Casey's tips on how to be a spy.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
I think, yeah. So they are working on some additional extras since they have been given a little more time.
Oh my goodness,
But,
that is
yeah.
terrible.
It's going to be early 2010 before we get season 2 on DVD.
Oh, that is terrible. Well, you can pre-order at Chuckazon. It's a long pre-order, so you guarantee prices if inflation changes in a year or so before the actual season 2 DVDs and Blu-rays come out. And you can still get the 6-issue Chuck comic compilation on sale for, I think it's still $13.59, which is a steal. I just got mine in the mail, I think yesterday or the day before, and it looks great. So you can definitely order that and support the podcast along the way.
Right. Don't forget to vote as you go to Podcast Alley or iTunes, downloading your episode of the podcast. We love to hear you or read your comments. Leave comments there at Podcast Alley and iTunes.
Yep.
We're continuing with Chuck Me Mondays, which is our group rewatch of Chuck from the beginning. We are watching them together at 9/8 Central on Monday evenings, and there's always a discussion post at chucktv.net, and we Twitter about it as well. And we've been doing some giveaways on chucktv.net on Mondays as well, so you'll want to check that out and just stop by and get all the details there.
Very cool.
So we'll sign off. If you don't want to hear spoilers, you can turn off your podcast now. And if you do want some juicy spoilers for Season 3, just keep sticking around. So, spoilers for Season 3. Oh my goodness.
Finally. The first spoilers for Season 3 actually came from Allie Adler, who posted a photo of her monitor
That was sneaky.
on Twitter with a page from the script for episode 2, which just confirmed what she had already said, that Karina will be back. I believe we talked about that in our last podcast. And there's been further speculation that the love trapezoid, not love triangle, but the love trapezoid coming our way involves Karina, Morgan, Chuck, Sarah, and possibly Casey. So
Oh boy!
Wow.
I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a whole, a farcical. That's not the right word. Anyway, it's going to be really fun to watch. I think it's going to be something of a farce, and I think it'll just be a hoot.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to seeing Karina back in action.
Very, very cool.
And I should mention that on the panel, a question that's come up a lot is that in Season 1, Sarah said that she had a sister.
Yeah.
And then, we met her father and we saw some flashbacks, and there's been no further mention of a sister. So there was a lot of speculation about, was that just part of her cover? Where was the sister? If that was really true. And people wondered if perhaps Karina was Sarah's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asked, that was the question that Yvonne got at the panel at Comic-Con. And it was kind of, if you watch the panel, it's a long-running joke, write that down.
Yeah.
And which continued into the press room. It was pretty funny. But she turned to Schwartz and Fedak, and Fedak was, oh, write that down. So what? I don't know if that means that they hadn't actually considered it before or if they were just covering, but I guess we'll find out. I hope we get more about Karina's past and her connection to Sarah, because obviously they've known each other for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the first time around. So
now the odd thing is just the way they pictured her relationship with her father when she was younger. It did seem like it was just the two of them. But then
right.
you wonder, well, where was her mother? Maybe she had a sister who was with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been that dynamic.
Exactly. They could have been split up and gone with each parent.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yep.
We have spoilers for the premiere. It's going to be called Chuck versus the Pink Slip.
Mm-hmm.
And it does begin right from the end of Guys I Know Kung Fu, not Chuck Fu, which Chuck Fu did get mentioned at Comic-Con, and they loved that. So kudos to the guy whose song I butchered on a previous podcast when I was singing that. That's become they loved that, and they started saying that during from in the panel and in the press room. So you'll probably see that come up. But from where Chuck says, "Guys, I know Kung Fu," we pick up immediately from there, and then Casey is talking to Chuck and saying, it's time to go to training. And Chuck's like, I don't know, what do you mean I have to leave again? And it's, Casey says, well, did you want to be a spy? You said you wanted to be a spy. And Chuck kind of, again, decides and commits to that, to being a spy. And he goes off to training. So our first scene is an immediate pickup, and then we get a 3 months later.
Oh, okay.
Fade in. Yes. So we see Chuck. He's been they're trying to transform him from an asset into a super spy. Mm-hmm. So he's been sent to training. Flash forward 3 months, and we find a cool, confident Charles Carmichael. He's meeting with some Russian spies to negotiate the return of some stolen item. Mm-hmm. It's all going really well until the time comes for Chuck to actually pull the trigger on one of the spies, when things don't go well. And his weakness is revealed at that point. He can't shoot him. Mm-hmm. So the Russians get to jump on him, and it was all a simulation.
Oh, okay.
And it's terminated, and General Beckman's there. She's not pleased because Chuck is still working from his emotions.
Yeah.
And she's trying to train that out of him, but you know, he's our Chuck. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So he does end up being sent out on a real world mission. Sarah is busy romancing a Frenchman who, help me out here. It's spelled Gilles. How's that pronounced?
Gilles.
Gilles.
Yeah.
As in, Jill.
Yeah, but it's a usually guy's name.
Yeah, we just thought that was really funny that they were revisiting that name. So yes, so Sarah is romancing the Frenchman named Gilles, in an ironic twist, and Chuck finds himself up on stage. They're at a nightclub. He finds himself up on stage as part of the band, and which is, then his newfound skill at flashing comes in quite handy because suddenly he can play in the band. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, he accidentally takes out a really bad guy who comes looking for him, and then figures out where to strike Chuck where it really hurts, and that would be Sarah. Aha. So our first episode back, we get to see some training. We get to see Chuck flashing and using his new skills, which don't stay with him, as we've been told. They're not permanent. He gets them when he needs them. Mm-hmm. And not always then, because there is a point where he's trying to force himself to flash to get out of a situation, and it doesn't work. So, yeah. But Colonel Casey and Sarah and Chuck are still a team, and they're still out on missions, and I think it's going to be a rip-roaring way to start season 3.
Very, very cool. And let's all hope that Leno doesn't go very well.
So we get to see that soon.
Soon. We see it sooner than later. And eventually, one year, our kids will see the release of the season 2 DVD.
It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so that's all we have for this week. And next time we will have our first video podcast, if everything goes well.
That's right. That'll be pretty exciting.
So we're going to sign off for this week. And thank you so much for listening.
We look forward to talking with you again and whiling away the months until Chuck returns, hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right. We'll see you next time, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Ciao.